When witches go riding and black cats are seen, the moon laughs and whispers, 'tis near Halloween. Welcome, guys. Welcome to Deliver More, this delightfully devilish edition of Deliver More. Thank you for joining us, and joining me today is the mischievous Michael Patterson. How are you, sir?
Hello, Nick. How you doing? Chris, what's up, guys?
Absolutely.
Hey, happy Halloween.
We have the devilish Chris Dole and werewolf, their wolf. Wolf, welcome, Chris. Welcome to both of you.
Trick or treat, Nick.
Absolutely.
Great to be here.
I got to thank you for giving up your time and joining us today. Deliver More is brought to you by the team here at Intech Services. We love bringing it to you month after month, and we love hearing from you. So please keep emailing us. Thank you for giving us good feedback, and we're just enjoying applying that and moving right along today. Guys, let me just ask you in general, do you enjoy the season of the witch? Do you enjoy the Halloween season?
Love it. It's a great season. On the East Coast, we've got the fall. You got the change of seasons, so it's starting to cool off. And also, my oldest son was born on Halloween, so it's always a special time in my house. He turns 21 this year, so
whoa,
yeah,
a lot of tricks.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, turning 21 on Halloween is probably pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's gonna be rough.
That's like a Christmas birthday. But yeah, that's wow.
I used to stress about the costume, especially as we got older, like trying to figure out what to put on. And then I realized you could just go to one of those Halloween stores and for $10, you were all set. So once I cracked that code a couple of years ago, I've really gotten into the season.
Yeah, it's funny. When the kids were younger, I think it was like super stressful to get them all together. As they've gotten older, it's like you're trying to hold on to these holidays that, as you get older, they kind of just go by the wayside. So, spending more time trying to decorate the house and get things together because, my youngest is almost 15. So
wow,
trick or treating is kind of out the window.
Wolfie's super dark about it now.
That's a lot of leftover Halloween candy for
just
you, brother.
Took a macabre turn.
6 pounds for Wolfie.
Yeah, I know. It's good for
it's
my
funny.
weight.
Mike brought up, here on the East Coast, it's wonderful that we actually can see, we get the 4 seasons, we can see the leaves change, and we kind of settle into this lovely, lovely autumn season. But of course, we all go towards, the season of the witch, the scary stories. I wanted to share a quote with you guys to get us going today. And the quote is from Richard Bachman, who became Stephen King. "We make up horrors to help us cope with the real ones. So those people by trade make up the stories that frighten us. But today, we're going to talk about stories from the real world and the real workplace. Today, you're joining us for Nightmares in Teflon and Terrifying Application Stories. So every job kind of has its own nightmare scenario, good days, bad days. But these are things that you guys have run into repeatedly. Mike, I wanted to start with you, sir. In this trade, it's got to be a little bit different than other things where you hear, well, the customer's always right, because I have to imagine, what about a customer that reaches out, wants to buy Teflon, but they probably shouldn't be applying it or doing anything with it? Is this a scenario that you've run into before?
Yes, we have. I think if you don't have to be in this business long to run into that sort of scenario. And I think just as far as background, so Intech gets a lot of incoming inquiries, phone calls, emails. Now faxes have pretty much gone away, fortunately. But so if somebody calls DuPont or emails, it's routed through us and we handle it. So it's great. I mean, we love the questions. We love the ideas and things that people are trying to do with the coatings. And what we see a lot of is people that are like, oh yeah, just sell me a gallon and I'll play with it and I'll put it on my part and we'll see what happens. And, I love the ingenuity and
sure,
forward thinking of it all. But if anybody knows that does apply Teflon on a regular basis, there's a lot involved in terms of the spray, the, surface prep, the spray, the curing, all, handling the part, racking. It's a million steps to it. And it really is. I've described it over the years. It's a black art to really be able to apply Teflon in a proficient manner to get the results that the coating's intended to produce. So, lots of times we get people that call in and say, yeah, I want to buy a gallon of this. I read about it on the internet, or I saw it on your website, and send me a gallon of 958-203. And so then that's when our kind of detective work kicks in, and we have to understand, like, all right, so tell me about your facility. What type of equipment do you have? And one thing I learned early on is I used to say to people, like, hey, do you have an 800 degree oven? And they'd be like, yeah, I have an 800 degree oven. So now I learned over the years, this big, how high does your oven go? Because a lot of times people beg, I've got no oven, or I've got a 200 degree oven, or a 400 degree oven. So we really try to qualify people the right way, because the last thing we want to do, the nightmare here, is that Teflon gets a bad name. Somebody, snows us, and we sell them a gallon. They apply it incorrectly, or it doesn't come out right. And now the industry that they're in says, oh, Teflon's junk. It doesn't work. We tried that. And I know Chris and anybody in this industry, even, our customer base, has run into an engineer or specifier that's used Teflon at one point in their career and said it doesn't work. And when in fact, who knows what coating was on there and how it was applied by whom it was applied. So there's a lot to it. And that, to me, is one of the biggest nightmares out there, is running the risk of jeopardizing the reputation and the name, and tarnishing the name of Teflon, because someone doesn't know what they're doing.
Intech has a tough job. I mean, we're stewards of one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Yep. And to Mike's point, we have 137 different coating systems. And for somebody to apply one incorrectly and with a broad stroke tarnish the entire, coating, selection, it really can damage the overall, reputation of Teflon in the field. And that is a nightmare for sure.
Yeah. And I know one of the things when I first started, and, that we try to tell our sales reps, it's at Intech, and overall, it's not about just selling the gallon. Mike's always told us, he goes, I don't care. You sell 1 gallon. Who cares? He's like, can the guy do it or not? And that's way more important. So as Mike was saying, protecting the reputation of the product and getting it in the hands of the right people. And I know we had conversations previously on Deliver More about our applicators, and, the Teflon guys that we work with built their business around the application of Teflon. They're specialized, and they have the know-how, the experience, and the equipment, more importantly, to do the application right. Because it's a performance coating. I mean, we're not selling on looks. I mean, hell, I work here. I mean, I'm not the prettiest guy in the world, that's for sure. But I mean, Mike continues to roll me out there to everybody. But nevertheless, Teflon's the same way. It doesn't look great. It performs, and it has to be handled correctly to perform.
Yeah. Wow. That's an interesting analogy, Chris.
Came right to
I thought of this story. Yeah. I thought of this scenario, and it just popped in my head. I was like 3 or 4 years into it. And I talked about us getting the incoming phone calls, and I got an incoming phone call one afternoon, and it was just a general, like a Joe homeowner guy. Right. And he called in and was like, Hey, I bought this product at a yard sale, and it says it's Teflon, and I sprayed it on the exterior of my car. And I thought it would make it faster, more aerodynamic. And he was like, and it's not drying, and it just keeps wiping off. And I was like, what does the can say? And so he was like, it says 851-204. And this is how old it was. It was like before the G codes and all the stuff like that, and the N codes. So this guy somehow bought a gallon of acid primer at a yard sale. I know he must have used an airbrush or something, or who knows what he did. Somehow he sprayed it on the outside of his car and just left it there, and then was asking me, why is it going to help and drive faster? And I was like, you're pretty much, you wasted your money. But that's a nightmare. You know what I mean? It's like somebody bought it, now it's selling it on a yard sale or Craigslist or who knows what they were doing. And it's just crazy, this stuff that people do. But, everybody thinks they can apply it. And in fact, you can't. It's specialized.
Yeah. And then, handling it the wrong way. I mean, you create a problem with, hazardous material. It's a regulated material, not just some Joe Schmo can just go.
Yeah. Who knows what this guy did with that gallon? I mean, it's just, this is not good.
Yeah, that pre-treatment process is so important too. I mean, you have to really rough up the surface, make sure it's ready to receive the Teflon in order for it to stay on board. And Yeah, someone
Yeah.
just spraying it on a car. That's
Yeah.
quite an interesting application.
I can't imagine too if somebody doesn't know what they're doing. You put it, say me. I'd be calling here every 5 minutes. I'd be,
Should at least Google it.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Nick again. I got another question.
That happens a lot. I mean, and we know, I mean, we love talking to people and this and that, but a person just starting off, even if they have all the equipment and they're going to make Teflon a part of their business, they've invested in the facilities and equipment, they're going to have a lot of questions versus people like our longstanding coders that have been doing this for 75 years. The only time they call is if it's a real oddball question, because they know more about this than we do potentially, because they've been doing it for so long. So, we never get questions from them about application. But the new people coming in, buckle up. You're going to be getting a lot. It's like being at shortstop during batting practice, man. You're just fielding one ball after another,
getting peppered.
Lasers hit at you the whole time.
Well, I got another scenario that could turn nightmarish, and I want to go. Guys are all experienced players in our game. Dole, I wanted to ask you about this one. What about when you run into someone who just picks the wrong coatings for the wrong reasons in this game? Is that something you've encountered?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that happen where applicators get comfortable. As I mentioned, 137 different coatings. You're not going to stock all 137. So people get into their routines of one or two favorites. And then unfortunately, every application that comes in the door, the primary market for our products are called job shops. And it means there's different jobs, different applications coming in that door every day. And what happens sometimes is they get caught in a rut and start applying, one of two scenarios where they're putting an inferior Teflon coating on a really difficult application, and then it tarnishes that brand. I tried Teflon, it didn't work. Or the other scenario is they may put a very complex and expensive system on something that doesn't necessarily need that complexity. And then you run into long time cost feasibility situations where if it's a high volume part and I put the Cadillac of Teflon on it, and it's just going to outprice the ability for them to be able to sell that product to the marketplace. Well, now you've got a scenario where you could have put the Kia on it or whatever that other lower brand, product is on there to get it through so that it meets, the cost feasibility. So, it's when I first learned Teflon, it's like you're on a fence. You're always going to give up something. You're going to give up performance, or you're going to increase cost. So there's a give and take in all of those different 137 systems. So, just getting in a rut, not asking questions, sometimes, puts us in that nightmarish scenario, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call it the Frank's Red Hot scenario, Nick, where the coder is comfortable with with a couple coatings, and they put that shit on everything. So it's like, hey, I love 42104. I just use that all the time, and it's like, gosh, why don't you call us or whatever? I will talk to you. There's not just one Teflon brand, even though your sprayer loves that one. Well, that's like one of the easiest coatings to apply. That's why they love it so much.
Yeah.
The other coatings are, a little bit more challenging. You have multiple coats or what have you. So we do run into that every now and then. And
the expense one is a kind of a drag too, though.
It
That reminds me of is like, you ever go to a restaurant and you're sitting there and the server comes up and you're like, hey, so what's your favorite things or what's the specialties? And the only thing that the server points out is the 3 most expensive items on the menu.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, I'm getting my arm twisted into trying to order that 60-ounce porterhouse, man. What the hell? So that's what I feel like that choosing like 857 for everything or choosing ruby red for everything. Yeah. It's like, it's overkill. You don't need that. And so, and like you said, Chris, you're going to price yourself out of the market. Or what we did, and my bigger fear here too, is that it works. And then the end user says, give me something cheaper. This is too expensive. And then they move it to a competitive coating. Right. And now we did all the pre-work and all with our coating just to like pave the way for a competitive coating. That's a real nightmare.
That's why this fits in the nightmare, because we want long-term applications. I mean, that's how all of us make money is having that consistent growth in these products, and like knowing when someone over specifies something that once it gets to the whatever the cost accountant is or whoever's really looking at the makeup of that product, you're going to lose. You're like, why are you doing that? You're putting us in such a bad position right out of the gate just by putting the wrong coating in place.
Yep. Or they might shop the coder too. They might not just shop the coding. They might shop the coder and find a new coder to somebody do it cheaper. I mean, people are unscrupulous about trying to cut people out of the equation.
It seems like it.
And I don't want to sell our applicators short either, because some of the guys are adept at certain codings because that's the business segment they're in, and they know better than not get into a one code high volume, because I do Ruby Red all the time. Yeah. They don't have, they know that they don't have the facility or the equipment to do that. So our coders, our core ones definitely know their sweet spot and stay away from stuff that's not for them.
Yes.
I'm making a note that when I hear the Frank's Red Hot term around the office, I know what's going on now in that particular.
As long as they're not spraying it.
You just saw somebody was getting wings that day.
I'm like, God damn, they're hungry already. Wolf, I'm going to go to you with one that I'm curious about. Here's a nightmare scenario for you. You guys all work the phones. And what goes through your mind when you hear, oh, you got to see this? I know you guys love traveling, and Intech loves to travel and provide solutions. But when you get a call and somebody says, hey, man, you got to come take a look at this, what kind of goes through your mind, Wolf?
Well, first of all, I mean, with the technology, people can send us pictures and things like that. And we'd like to see that first, just to get an idea of what's going on. But really, Nick, in these scenarios, you've got to go to the beginning. And I know sometimes, the coder can be pressed for time, or, they put their sprayer on the phone, or it's a guy that, wasn't even applying it. And we're like, hey, I need to go through the process from beginning to end. And or like, what process are you following? And I know Mike and Chris will agree. You'll get the general, I use a fact sheet. And then they just stop, and it's like, okay,
my guy's been spraying this for 30 years and he's using a fact sheet. Like, well, if that's the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Exactly.
And the best is you read the fact sheet applications off to them. Oh no, we don't do that. Like, we actually do something a little different. Yeah.
But so and that's and as much as you're like, listen, I don't want to start from the beginning, but I'm going to have to, because as we know, there's certain areas that are trouble spots. Like Chris was talking earlier about the preparation step, preparing the substrate. You also have a step of preparing the material as well. That can be a place where you fumble. The cure is another big problem, or can be. So there's certain areas we hit on just because somebody sent me a picture, I may not tell the whole story, or I can't just come to a conclusion just because I saw one picture, and that's the other 20 pieces turned out okay. This one's not okay, so, and that happens sometimes. But, what Mike was saying is too, we do like to get out, and it does allow for us, for the coders that do, not everybody will let you in and see what's going on, but the ones that do, it is like so eye-opening for us on this side, because we distribute the coding. We're not doing this every day. We know a lot of theory. We know, we read a lot about the codings, but we don't do them every day. And there are certain things, that happen or that we find out because we were there, and we saw what happened firsthand, or there's maybe it could be a small misstep. It could be a giant misstep. I had a guy that was, trying to apply one of our powders and was doing a primer step, and then a top coat, and then a primer step, and then a top coat. And we were like, why are you doing that? I was like, primer is a one-time application. You don't do that over and over and over again. And he was like, well, I'm trying to get the additional top coats to stick. We're like, you got to hot flock that in there. It will stick. They'll all merge together. You don't have to keep putting primer down. Yeah. But, things like that, again, we can handle a lot of them over the phone, but there's certain ones, we had a scenario where somebody kept coming to us year after year, like, this material is out of balance. Like, I can't get it reincorporated. I'm getting, bad application. And finally, I just was like, I'm going to go see this customer and see what's going on. And what it came down to is, a piece of equipment they were using every day, which was important, and they needed it, didn't have an impeller to keep or agitator to keep the material suspended. So they would go on lunch and then come back, and the material would settle out. And then they would start spraying on their line again. And it's like, there's some coating here, other areas it's just solvent. And that's exactly what they were explaining. And we got into that level of detail, and we're able to figure that out.
Well, if I think that's where us not doing it every day really helps applicators, because we kind of have that outside perspective,
Yep.
that really theoretical, this is exactly how you should
Process.
be. Yeah, this is exactly how you should be working through that process. And even some of our, more experienced applicators, they just like to run stuff by us too, just because something might not be acting correctly. So I think there's real value in having both of those kind of daily use applications and knowledge with our, theoretical outside approach.
Yep.
I think it really works well.
I think my kind of reaction to Chris's and Wolfie's thoughts is I've always loved going out on the road, and always urged everyone here to go on the road, because you just learn so much more. And I can think of things I've learned early in my career. For example, seeing solvent-based products sweat in humid environments, and working through customers to resolve that. Like, things I saw and worked through firsthand stuck with me my whole career. And so if somebody calls now and it's July and they're spraying and the solvent-based coatings are sweating, I know exactly how, there's two ways that I fixed it, at the customer's location, that we did it together. But now I know, because I was there. Or I was at one place where we were spraying powder and a thunderstorm came up, and it was during the summer also. And I saw the impact that the lightning had on the electrostacks of the powder. And so things like that, we don't learn that in our office. But being on site lets us learn that. So that's one thing I've always loved. And the second thing is that, especially if we can go to an end user's plant, because we do that quite a bit too. It's not just us going to see the coaters, it's end users saying, can you come see my waffle line, or can you come see this, whatever line it's going to be. And we jump at that chance, because I can pretty much bet a round of drinks that as we're walking through the plant to get to go see that line, that's the line in question, I'm going to find a handful of other applications that could use Teflon down the road that we'll keep in our hip pockets, and then solve the problem for them, help them out, build the goodwill. Now I have credibility to go back to them and say, hey, here's some other things we saw that Teflon could really help you out with. So, that happens when we're on the road, and which is why we love doing that. And so it's a really important part of what we do.
That's why this last year has been a nightmare, to bring it back to, full circle. Really preventing our ability to get out and interact and build those, relationships that matter, and learn those different things, Mike, has really been a nightmare, to say the least.
Yeah, it is, especially if we talk about like developing the younger sales guys. That's how you learn. And so it's one of the most valuable things I would say about my career, is having the ability to do that when I was younger and wasn't really tied down. So it would be nice to get this thing resolved and get people back out on the road more, and all that stuff. Plus, I'm just, get them out of our hair too. It's stop drinking coffee and get on the road.
It's how you learn not to touch a hot part, right, Mike?
That's right.
There's another one for you.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, there's a nightmare. It's a great point, Mike. And I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of difference about hearing, the difference between hearing about a coating failure and then actually being able to go and trouble spot and see it with your own eyes. Yep. But I wanted to ask you, let's talk about hearing something. So tell me what this is like, because I've kind of been present for some of it. How about, when you get somebody that calls the office, it's not just once, it's not just twice. So they basically turn into the Riddler with how many questions they're asking and how they're going about asking their questions. This is because this is a common thing through the years here.
It happens. It's probably something that happens, I would say, once a month. And a lot of times what happens, especially if, something that maybe seemingly a small thing is an important thing for them. So they'll call Chemours, they'll call, who then will tell us, and we'll call them. Let's say I call them. They may call back in and talk to either, any of us. Sometimes we'll find out that there's like four of us on parallel path trying to resolve this problem for the customer. and like, that's not inefficient. That's not efficient for anyone. So we really, because we talk a lot internally. Our offices are all right here. And if we're working from home, we're still talking each day. So we know what's going on a lot. And so that's always one of those things that to us is kind of a nightmare, because it's just inefficient for us in terms of just directing communication and trying to find out the information we need to have.
Yeah. I mean, well, especially when you have the entire team chasing the same answer, you know, it's just, that's just a nightmare of inefficiency.
Well, and here's the other thing too. I learned this early on from my dad and Kaz. Nick, you could ask the three of us, and we did an episode like this. What's the best coding for this application? You could ask us three right now. Here's the parameters of this application. You might get three different answers. It's not like it's a black and white scenario most of the time.
Right.
Mhm.
So, and that can be confusing for someone calling in too. If they're using multiple of us to get an answer and they get multiple answers back, that's a nightmare for them. You know, so like, and that's why we usually say like, I don't think I've ever in my career said this is the answer for you. There's this one coding and one coding only that will work, because you just never know. You always have to spray and test and confirm results, right? So we will almost always say, all right, so here's some alternatives: is A, B, and maybe even C, depending on how it goes. And then it's up to somebody who's going to have to make a decision on it. But it's not us. It's not our job to make the decision. It's our job to take the information and interpret that and kick back out some results that they can take action on.
Good, better, best. And then, like I said, you're getting something, you're giving up the other thing. It's very hard theoretically to know exactly what that application needs. So that's why you've got to kind of test it all out.
I tell you what's shocking sometimes, Nick, with the nightmare scenario is the guy that calls in and he doesn't know the environment parameters. Like, it's amazing sometimes. Like, it's a process of elimination for us. Like, we're trying to narrow down to, certain codings that would be applicable. And like, one of your top questions is, end use temperature. And you get this like deer in the headlights. And you're like, it's gonna be really hard for me to give you a recommendation. Yeah. You don't even know what the end use temperature is. And so that then begins the runaround, because then they're like, well, what else do I need to know? And you're like, well, here, let me just lay this out for you, find out these things and come back to me and I'll be able to, help you out a little bit better. So we hate to just throw a coding out there.
No, that's irresponsible for us.
Yeah.
I mean, so we have to get this information, but you're right. It does. Hardly anybody knows the end use temperature. It's pretty rare. I'd say it's like 15-20% of the time. I feel like, it's pretty rare.
Wow.
And then they can get that. And then, if there's 5 pieces of information, they'll come back with 2 of them. So you're like, okay, now we narrowed it to here and I still need these 3. And then you keep like, walking down the path to get to a place where we can make a recommendation with confidence.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Well,
that's the hardest part, training our sales team as well. Like it's very easy just to be a quick instant answer, kind of person, but you really have to understand the solution and actually care about where is this coding going, and, teaching that in depth, we call it solution selling, is really difficult for people to understand.
It's like when Wolfie was new, he tried to let somebody code plywood.
Yep.
And I overheard the conversation from my office. I was like, no.
It's a good thing it wasn't COVID. You never heard that conversation. You'd be like, you let a guy buy Teflon for plywood?
He's buying 50 gallons a month now.
Yeah. Hey, the square footage was good.
Yeah.
It harkens back to just what we know now as a universal truth. There's no substitute for experience. So, and that's got to be the tough thing about, this situation we're in, especially young people that you hire and get them in here. Experience means the world. And it's why so many people rely on you guys and trust in tech to provide solutions and to provide exceptional sales support. So guys, we're winding this one down. I want to thank you for walking me through this nightscape of nightmares and bad application stories. And the plywood one I wasn't expecting, Mike. Thanks for throwing that out there at the end.
That's usually my I3 intro story.
Yeah. Trick or treat, Wolf.
We haven't had I3 in a couple of years.
Speaking of trick or treat, gentlemen, I saw this weird article. I guess it's not weird, right? It's October. What the hell am I saying? It's a seasonally appropriate article today about Halloween candy and about American buying tendencies. Now, I saw that most Americans, a majority of Americans, buy their Halloween candy in the first 2 weeks of October. That surprised the hell out of me. Because I'm just like, oh my God, is it Halloween? I better go to Walgreens and play it that way. But I looked at what sold the best. Okay. And nationwide, then I have stats that apply right here to Delaware, Delaware.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with you, Crystal. In America, what is the most popular Halloween candy?
Ooh.
Well, first I'll start by saying I bought my candy this weekend, so
Good
I am
man.
ready to go.
You got to rebuy next weekend.
Yo, I was going to say that. Same thing in my house. It starts to get eaten now, and then by the time you get there, it's gotta buy again.
I would say Reese's peanut butter cups.
All right. Dole checking in with peanut butter cups. Let's get that down. Okay. The people in the studio are listening. Wolf, most popular in America. What is it?
Jeez, I'm gonna go candy bar route again. I'm gonna go Twix.
Twix.
No way. Get the hell out of here, Wolf.
Wolf coming
I
in
love
with
Twix. There's no way that's even in the top 10.
Wolf coming in with Twix and Mike
But
giving it to Joel and
stole
B
Reese's
just
for me. I was
smacking
gonna
it,
get that one.
smacking that thing away. Mike, you don't like the Twix picks. We have Twix. We have Reese's peanut butter cups. I want to know, Mike Patterson, what's the number one selling, most popular Halloween candy in America?
Yeah, so I'm glad I had some extra time because I switched answers. I'm going to go Snickers.
That was my number
Snickers.
2, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going
All right,
Snickers.
before you reveal, Nick, if you say candy corns, I'm out.
And that was the other thing I was starting to think about. Yeah,
Sims should be banned.
Dude, I'd be out too. Why would I do that to you? I wouldn't even want to put that mental image in your head. That is some nasty stuff.
Well, I'm dressed like one today, so
Guys, oh, I got news for you. The only one who even charted in the top 5 is our own Chris Dole.
Yeah,
Reese's Cups are the number
Yeah.
one selling Halloween candy,
Nice.
followed by in the top 5, because I found this odd, followed by Skittles,
God damn it. That was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, I was thinking M&Ms.
M&M's, Starburst, and then
I can see
5.
that.
Oh.
5 is the weirdest to me. Hot tamales.
What?
Oh yeah.
You have to go back
like the
to
Mike and
19
Ike's, like
Yeah.
No, yeah.
No, there's hot tamales.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
I
good.
would think you'd have to hop into a DeLorean.
This is
just to
nationwide,
purchase
though,
that.
right? This
Yeah,
is
exactly.
nationwide.
I think
All right,
this,
all right,
yeah.
all right. Yeah, it's
Nationwide.
skewed.
That's a macro trend.
You don't see
looking
many hot tamales in Delaware, I can tell you. that.
No. So you guys have all, done your Halloween hosting in Delaware and giving out candy. What do you give the most out of, Wolfie? What's the most popular Delaware candy?
Oh, I'm actually going back to Reese's with Dole. I mean, I know that's what we give out a lot of. We always have those.
Looking on Dole's paper. Eyes on your own paper, Wolf.
No.
All right. Reese's Cup. Dole, what do you got?
Same. That's why I gave my answer. Yeah, I got lucky enough to go first.
Skewed. Yeah.
Mike Patterson, round it out here.
We buy those like variety packs, right?
Yeah.
And then like my whole so I just hold it out and tell people to take whatever they want, like a couple. And most kids will take like 2 items. Some kids are going in for like a huge grab and taking a bunch. But like I can tell you I don't really know what's the most popular because everything is pretty cleaned out except for one thing.
What's
the
that?
Almond Joys.
I was gonna say that or mounds.
Yeah, mounds too.
Cool.
Those 2 things at the end of the night, at the bottom of the basket,
Yeah.
is those 2 things, and then they sit around my house because nobody in my house really eats them.
Yeah.
And then we end up trashing them.
Yeah.
Coconut.
We got Delaware. I think Delaware's just odd, man. We're an outlier. Maybe there's something in the water that makes us choose things differently. Most popular Halloween candy in the state of Delaware, the first state, Skittles.
Yeah, I believe it.
Skittles
I believe
followed by
I could see that.
Lifesavers.
That's
Hell,
ridiculous.
What kind of kids doing that? Unless they're all pineapple.
Yeah, I want to
And
see
then,
the statistics on the
Number
survey.
number 3, Sour Patch Kids, which I guess
No
is
chocolate in the
up
top
the
3?
Chocolate.
No, no
Wow.
chocolate.
Hard
in the top
sugar.
3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Delaware's got bad teeth.
Well, we got. That's it, man. We need some help. We need some culture here. Improve our candy taste, gentlemen. I did want to thank you all for dressing up and ignoring my request to our listeners. I asked all 3 of them if they would dress up as Eagles coach Nick Sirianni, and all of them said pass. Oh, there's a terrible joke for you.
Yeah,
Guys,
that visor with the highlighter in my
look,
visor.
Wolf, Dole, Mike, it's a pleasure as always. Thanks for giving up your time, and thanks for being here today with us on Deliver More.
It's always fun. Thanks,
Oh
guys.
yeah, it's always a good
Thanks,
time.
Nick.
Thank
Great
you.
being here.
Thanks to our listeners. Thanks for joining us again. Remember to subscribe to Deliver More. Happy Halloween, everybody. We're going to see you next time.
Stay
from
safe.
Delaware. Stay safe. Bye-bye now.
No candy apples.